Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about Bjarne Stroustrup, or at least that's how I've been saying his name. So first of all, this is a famous guy, and here's a picture of him on his website. He has his own website here, and he's basically an old bald guy, and he is the original creator of the C++ programming language. So almost any programmer these days knows who he is. He's given so many speeches, he's written so many books, he's done a lot. I mean, he's lived a long time, so I kind of expect he's done a lot anyway. And he has this very simple website. I like his website. You know what I like about his website is all he has is maybe a few pictures in places and just a whole bunch of text. And that's really all a website needs to have. That's the way my websites that I used to look, because that's the most important information. We don't need all this fancy stuff like we have in these modern websites. But anyway, the reason Bjarne Stroustrup is important is because of his work on the C++ programming language. And I actually have his book, The C++ Programming Language, 4th edition. And it's like 1,300 pages, so it'll take me the rest of my life to read. Plus, I keep getting distracted with other things. But of particular interest, one thing unique about this guy, not just the fact that he's a very famous programmer who's written so many books, given so many talks, promoted the C++ programming language, but he has a very hard to pronounce name. So on his frequently asked questions on his website, he has the question, how do you pronounce Bjarne Stroustrup? He says, it can be difficult for non-Scandinavians. The best suggestion I have heard yet was start by saying it a few times in Norwegian, then stuff a potato down your throat and do it again. Here is a WAV file. Okay, let's listen to the WAV file.
The proper Danish pronunciation of my name is Bjarne Stroustrup. Native English speakers usually get Bjarne right, but I often have to say Stroustrup or Stroustrup to be understood.
I don't know if you were able to hear that or not, so just in case the audio from that WAV file was not picked up by my microphone, I'm going to go back into my settings and I'm going to change it to desktop audio instead of the mic.
The proper Danish pronunciation of my name is Bjarne Stroustrup. Native English speakers usually get Bjarne right, but I often have to say Stroustrup or Stroustrup to be understood. The proper Danish pronunciation of my name is Bjarne Stroustrup. Native English speakers usually get Bjarne right, but I often have to say Stroustrup or Stroustrup to be understood.
Right. Actually, while I'm at it, I wanted to mention that this method of recording the desktop audio with Open Broadcaster software is actually a very helpful tool when there's audio that you want to record. I actually use that feature in my dancing videos to record iTunes playing the music while I dance to it. So that's actually how I did it. But anyway, back to I could not pronounce that guy's name if I tried. So I'm just going to keep calling him Bjarne Stroustrup. Sure, I could at least the first name I could pronounce, the Bjarne, but as a native American English speaker, I just look at the way that we're taught phonics. It looks like it spells Bjarne Stroustrup. And yeah. Okay. So, and while I'm here, I think it's also worth mentioning that Bjarne Stroustrup's or Bjarne Stroustrup's home, yeah, he's not the only one with a crazy name. So I'm going to look up Rasmus Lutterdorf. Okay, You got to see this. There is another famous guy. This guy Rasmus Lerdorf is I guess he is the co-author, one of the authors of the PHP scripting language, and I used to use the PHP language when I was learning how to do stuff on a web server, and PHP is actually a really good programming language as well, and I actually used to do graphics and stuff with it back in the day because it had its own built-in graphics operations, which is really super cool. So if I do like PHP. If you're a web developer, you need to know PHP. But I'm just pointing out that there's so many different programmers, and most of them are from other countries. They're not from the US, most of these guys. So they have names that are very hard for me as an American to pronounce. But a little bit more about this guy. So he even has translations into other languages of his frequently asked questions. So this is really cool. There are all of these questions that people frequently ask him, and I've actually read a great deal of his answers to these questions. I haven't read the whole FAQ, but I have read a great deal of it, and I've listened to many talks. It's not hard to find speeches by him on YouTube. It's just great information, and I've been learning more about C++ recently because really I'm a C programmer. If you looked at my other programming videos, you'll know that you're gonna know that I mostly just do C programming, and I'm gonna show you some of my videos. Okay, so I'm just gonna, let's see if I can go to my playlists. Yeah, my programming playlist, because I have my programming playlist. Some of these are my own videos. Only a few of them are actually my own videos, but the majority of them are programming videos made by other people. And even in this, I even have one by, I think I may have one or two talks with Bjarne Stroustrup. Here's one I listened to, and there's this one that I listened to, and there are many others I've listened to that are not on the playlist because I could never possibly add them all. But he's given so many talks, and this video is also good. This isn't by Bjarne Stroustrup, but it's by some other guy who's talking about, programming in C and the way he does it, which is really interesting. Because I'm mostly a C programmer, if anyone will know. For example, what you'll really want to look at is my binary bitmap series. I have not made videos with this recently, but I have some videos where I was talking about my binary bitmap project and showing in videos how I got it to work. And I have, there's a lot of information. So, for example, one of the things that I did, for example, was this one, BBM Powers of 2, which is super cool. And it took me a long time to set up my own font system, basically creating a bitmap font and copying the characters from it. So this is one of the videos I'm really proud of. So, but as far as sharing my my source code, I'm going to talk a little bit here. Let's see here. As far as sharing my source code, it's been challenging because all of the source code of my BBM project is on it's on a SourceForge project that I have, but it's also you see bits and pieces in some of my videos that I make. But here's the problem: even if somebody downloads all of my source code, it's in an archive, which I frequently update, they're not going to know how to use it. And that's because, well, I have the main function calls other functions that are actual animation functions typically. And those functions call other functions I wrote, which are in other header files. So I have multiple header files for very many different purposes. There's the one for input and output. There's different specific files for outputting specific image file formats. There's even one that I don't really use much about making color palettes for doing rainbow colors and stuff like that. So I have a lot of code, but as of yet, it's still not in a readable format for other humans, and that's the challenge. So if I do publish another book, it will probably be a programming book where I have like a chapter by chapter thing where I introduce concepts of graphics programming. And I'm just in the stage right now where I'm thinking about ideas. How do I want to write that book? But a big part of the challenge will be getting to have example programs that are small enough to fit on 1 or 2 pages of a book. And what I'm actually going to aim for first, perhaps, because when it comes to a book, things are a little bit more complicated. But what I think I'm going to aim for is I'm going to aim for getting programs that all fit on my computer screen at one time, so that I can have a screenshot of a program, and then you see the whole source code of the whole thing in one page. And what is this going to mean? Well, this is going to mean something. It's going to mean that I will not be able to have multiple header files and several different functions and several different files all being called by another function. Although that works at producing the animations, and I know how to use it, only I know how to use it, and it's impossible for anybody else to read, unless they wrote the program themselves, obviously. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to simplify it and strip out a lot of that and just copy specific portions. I might be able to have example programs that all fit on a single page, or they may have to be 2 or 3 pages, maybe 2 or 3 screenshots of the screen to capture the whole program. And of course, a lot of that depends on font size and how the code's written, but I want the code to look elegant, but I also want it to be easy enough for programmers and even people new to programming to read. And that's a big challenge, because as any experienced programmer knows, there's what the computer can read and there's what a human can read, and they're often very, very different. And I think more like a computer than most other humans, so I'm able to read some really hard to read code, but usually only if it's the code that I wrote in the first place. I'm not good at reading other people's code. I'm really not. I basically learned C programming by reading a few books, following along a few tutorials, copy pasting, modifying programs. I learned Hello World, and I started learning for and while loops. I learned about arrays, all those concepts. And to this day, all of my programming that I've done with any major projects has either been C code or it's been C++, but mostly in C style. So basically I have C++ code with a whole bunch of printf statements and using new and delete instead of malloc and free. And these days I don't bother with that. I stick with the 1989 standard of the C programming language, and I just use malloc and free and pointers and arrays and integers and all that. And I stick with very, very low level code. And so there's actually very little code written by others that I can read, because I stick to a very strict subset of even the C programming language. I use as few features as is possible in my programming because I have limited knowledge, and it's going to take me years to learn more advanced concepts. But here is my personal statement on what I think of computer programming. See, we all know that no matter what high-level language you're using, C, C++, or even Java or an interpreted language and stuff like that, the computer has to run it. And we know that it all boils down to machine code. Or even if it's a bytecode interpreter type thing, there's still actual CPU instructions. The most complex C++ program is still going to compile down to assembly language, which is then assembled and linked to pre-compiled code and all sorts of stuff. And so the simple matter is, newer programming languages have only added an easier way for programmers to read things. But the way computers work at the fundamental level, bits and bytes and memory and stuff like that, has not changed. That's stayed the same since the 60s or the 70s, the basic way computers operate. So when you consider that, a person can be very efficient as a C programmer. In fact, some of the greatest games ever made were written in the C programming language, and some of them ran on Microsoft DOS. That they don't run anymore because they ran in a very specific environment and access video memory directly, which is what I liked about DOS. Is you could do that. You could actually do graphics very easy in DOS, and I even used to do graphical stuff in QBasic back when I used that programming language. But that doesn't work on modern computers. That quit working a long time ago. Back on Windows 98, you could still restart in DOS mode, and you could still use DOS programs perfectly. But these days, you either have to have a spare computer and install FreeDOS on it, or you have to use a virtual machine, and a virtual machine is a real pain, because then you have to know how that virtual machine works and how to set it up. So that's actually more work. It's actually less work to try to install some version of DOS on an old computer that you buy from a thrift store than it is to set up a virtual machine, honestly. At least in my experience. Maybe I'm not very smart. But I'm a low-level programmer. I'm a very low-level programmer, and that means I do things close to the hardware. And if you look at my C code and my other videos that are on my channel, you'll see that everything is just, pointers are indexed as arrays, because you can do that in C. C and C++ allow pointers, and you can do amazing pointer arithmetic if you want to. I try to avoid it because it does get confusing, but it's also very powerful. So that's my statement on, the first part of this video is my statement on Bjarne Stroustrup and how you say his name, but also a little bit of rant about the plans that I have if I do publish a book, and the work it's going to take me to get my code into a more readable human format so I can make better quality videos showing how things work, and so eventually I may be able to publish it into a printed book. Maybe it'll be helpful because I have a very simplified understanding of programming, and there might be somebody else out there with a similar brain to me that has a hard time reading the 1,300-page book by Bjarne Stroustrup, but wants to get started at programming something fun and wants it to be done quickly. So I'm hoping to publish a small programming book, but it'll probably take me 1 to 2 years as I find time and depending on what else goes on in my life. But I just feel better talking about it. So anyway, I'm going to eat now. Have a good day.